I am firmly convinced that most men have absolutely no idea what they're truly capable of because most men have never given themselves the opportunity or the chance to show up and play life at that level, to swim in the deep end of the pool, metaphorically speaking. I've worked with over 2,000 entrepreneurs in the last decade plus. And I'm not talking about working with men as a self-identity architect. I'm talking about working with entrepreneurs in the capacity of a marketing agency or marketing coaching or business development. And just in that context alone, I have come across so many men and women, entrepreneurs, but today I'm talking about men who, when I look at them, when I listen to them talk, when I observe them, when I look at the niche that they're in, the opportunity that exists economically, the trends, I take a step back and I shake my head because I look at them and I go, how are you not doing 10x more, 5x more, 50x more? Maybe I just have a weird way that my brain is wired, but I look at so many people and I just see so much potential. People that I work with professionally, men that I coach privately, friends, and just people in my social graph in life. And the thing that's so frustrating about it for me sometimes is no matter how much I try to share with them what I see for them and the dots that are connecting for me in my mind about them and their potential and their future, potential future, and the opportunities surrounding them. And no matter how hard I try to communicate what I see in them in terms of raw capacity, raw talent, raw competence, uniqueness, and then try to encourage them to do things with those resources in a way that I know would parlay them and catapult them into a higher level in life, nothing happens. Nothing happens. They don't do anything with it. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how one of my biggest lessons in life is a man in need will always be a man in need. Somebody who's in need will always be in need. And the picture that I painted as an analogy is when we come across a beggar on the street begging for money, that man is in need. And until he changes his consciousness and his self-identity, that man will always be in need in one way or another. And I talked about how while we can identify and label a beggar on the street as an obvious, clear example of a man in need, a much more camouflaged and subtle example surrounds us all the time in our friends, our colleagues, our peers, our family members, and ourselves, and the way we are always showing up in some way as a metaphorical beggar, always in need. And I talk about how I've had friends throughout my life who, dress much nicer, talk much nicer, don't have drug addictions, etc., like maybe a street beggar, but they were still always a man in need. That same idea transposed over to what I'm talking about now, where I look at so many men and see so much astounding potential in them. And yet, no matter how much I try to speak into that potential, they don't do anything with it. Nothing happens with it. It's sort of the same thing as like a man who's always in need is a man who's always in need, and a man who's comfortable where he's at is comfortable where he's at. A man who's reached the limits, the man who has reached the self-imposed limits or ceiling of his success is a man who is going to stay at his self-imposed limits or ceiling of success. Because time and time and time again, I've seen it. When a man gets hungry, when a man wants something bad enough, suddenly those limitations aren't quite as strong anymore. That ceiling's starting to look like a step to the next level. Until a man wants it for himself, you can't want it for him. That's the bumper sticker. If the first bumper sticker was a man in need will always be a man in need, then the other bumper sticker is until a man wants it for himself, you can't want it for him. And wherever there's a will, there is a way, you know? Like the guy that has 2 ex-wives, alimony, and child payments, but he's got a brand new Range Rover or Lexus sitting in the driveway. How are you affording all that? Where there's a will, there's a way. You know? People who live in trailer parks, but they got these satellite dishes that'll give NASA competition. How do they afford that satellite dish? That's almost as big as their whole trailer. Where there's a will, there's a way. When a man wants something bad enough, he figures it out. And if a man doesn't want it bad enough, it doesn't matter how low you set the next step or how easy you make the bar to hit the next level of success, he gonna trip over it every single time. It just seems like to me. I'll say all that to say this. There's a big chance that you're sleeping on yourself and your potential and what you're truly capable of. I say that with high confidence because most men that I meet are living in self-imposed prisons and limitations. Most men are living in self-imposed prisons made up of whose bars are their own limiting beliefs. You know, the prison bars, the bars of their prison cells are their beliefs, self-imposed. Most of you have no idea what you're capable of because you've never given yourself a chance to show up and play at that level. You've never put a demand on yourself to go swim in the deep end of the pool of life. Play to win.